Today we're focusing on empathy, and empathy is one of the more critical traits of um, a successful or a happy relationship and marriage. It is the ability to be able to not just identify the emotions of the other person, but actually validate those emotions. Everyone desires to be understood and to be validated. Um, there's a person's inherent need to feel that they're in a safe place and that they can be vulnerable with a person that they feel cares about them. And that is a key indicator of a person's sense of feeling cared for, is that, okay, you're not ignoring my feelings, you're not minimizing my feelings, and you're giving me a place to express, and you're connecting to that person's feelings. And that makes them feel safe, that makes them feel accepted. And those are base needs of humanity. It's listening to understand by identifying the other person's feelings, but also using your experiences to be able to connect with those same feelings. So if they're feeling sad, or sometimes they're even feeling happy and you're not happy, and you need to feel happy for them in the midst of something that you're not necessarily all that happy about, you can utilize your emotional memory of a time that you felt a similar feeling to be able to connect with that person and meet them where they're at. So this act of being empathetic, it requires you to be comfortable with your past experiences. If you avoid your feelings, you'll struggle to be able to connect to people when they're feeling things that you're uncomfortable with. And our our automatic reaction is to avoid by minimizing the feelings or deflecting, and or trying to refocus them on something else and not allowing them to sit in those feelings, express those feelings, and to get out whatever they have to get out. So if you're finding yourself not just being, I mean, it's normal to be uncomfortable in certain situations, but if you're not able to give another person room to express themselves, if you're feeling the need to change the dynamic, as in, okay, I need to refocus them on the positive or anything like that, if they're needing to get something out, then that is an indication that you may need to deal with some things that you haven't dealt with within yourself. Because if we have experienced things and come out the other side, we know that, well, one, of course they will too, but also that that's not a stronghold for us, that we're not still in a place of not being healed in that area. So there's three different types of empathy, and in simple terms, it's acknowledging. Cognitive is acknowledgement. Emotional is the connection aspect, and then compassionate is actually taking the action of doing something in that instance. So it may be just being there in that moment and listening. It may be expressing availability of what can I do, or it may actually be doing something that will alleviate, like, well, I know you have this going on, let me take care of this for you, or let me help you with X. So It's not to say that anyone is right or wrong or better than the other, because each situation is different. But that's part of being in that moment with the person, is just sensing, okay, I'm listening to what you're saying, and this is what I can offer. Sometimes you can't do anything but be an ear. Sometimes you are able to do, to do some type of act that helps alleviate some of what's going on. And so that being present is the most important thing. So sympathy is considered to be pretty synonymous with empathy, but sympathy is actually a tendency to deflect, diminish, dismiss, or direct a person's feelings, not so much to actually connect with them. So we're going to listen to Dr. Brown share some information about the differences between sympathy and empathy.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Come on, you knew I was cool.
I'm sorry. So I'm gonna play this video from the breakup. And some of you may or may not have seen this before. I did use this video, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe 3. Oh gosh. In a presentation. But today, what I want you all to do, and hopefully you have something to write with nearby. But what I want you to do in this video is a little bit different than what we did before. I want you to listen to what each person is saying, but I want you to identify the emotions of the person of the opposite sex in this video. So if you're a woman, then listen to what the man is saying and expressing, and write down the emotions that you're seeing and hearing in him. If you're a man, write down what the woman is expressing and what you're seeing and hearing, what her emotions are. Okay, so opposite sex.
Working today, and I made that meal, and you could have thought to yourself, You know, you could have said, I think I'm going to get Brooke some flowers.
You said on our very first date that you don't like flowers, that they're a waste of money.
Every girl likes flowers, Gary.
You say that you don't like flowers. I'm supposed to take that to mean that you do like flowers?
No, this is not about, you're not getting it. You're not getting this, Gary. Okay, it's not about the lemons. It's not about the flowers. It's not about the dishes. It's just, how many times do I have to drop hints about the ballet?
You know I can't Brooke, come here. We talked about the damn ballet. I hate the goddamn ballet. You got a bunch of dudes in tights flopping around for 3 hours. It's like a medieval techno show. It's a nightmare. I sit there in the sweat. The whole thing. I do it. Wondering when the hell's the goddamn nightmare gonna end? Go to a damn ballet.
It's not about you loving the ballet, Gary. It's about the person that you love loves the ballet, and you wanting to spend time with that person.
Not when they're at the ballet?
Okay, forget the ballet. Forget the ballet. We don't go anywhere together.
We just went to Ann Arbor together.
To Ann Arbor. To the Michigan Notre Dame game. You think screaming drunk kids and leprechauns doing backflips, that's fun. That's fun for me. Come on, man. I did that for you. How do you show up for me?
I'm up on the bus every goddamn day for you.
Come on.
I'm busting my ass to be the best tour guide in the damn city so I can make enough money to support both of us, and hopefully you won't have to work one day.
I want to work.
All I ask, Brooke, is that you show a little bit of appreciation, that I just get 20 minutes to relax when I come home instead of being attacked with questions and nag the whole damn thing.
You think that I nag you?
That's all you do. All you do is nag me. The bathroom's a mess. Your belt doesn't match. Hey, Gary, you should probably go work out. Nothing I ever do is ever good enough. I just want to be left the hell alone.
Really? Is that what you want, Gary? Is that what you want?
Yeah.
That's what you want?
Yeah.
Fine, great. Do whatever the hell you want. You leave your socks all over this house, dress like a pig, play your stupid-ass video game. I don't care. I'm done.
What?
I am done. I don't deserve this. I really do not deserve this. I deserve somebody who gives a shit. I'm not spending one more second of this life with some inconsiderate prick. You're a prick.
So, anybody triggered? Anybody had that argument before?
Yo, that is so funny. Totally relatable.
So you may have felt triggered or had flashbacks of your own experience with similar interactions. And truly, these two demonstrated what a complete breakdown of communication looks like. And they just essentially didn't hear each other at all. They didn't hear anything that the other person was saying. And really, the reason they didn't is because the argument wasn't about what they were talking about, for one. And clearly, it's been an ongoing missing each other type of a thing. And that's why it went from, you didn't get something that I asked you to get for dinner, to all of these other things over the time that they have been together. So they weren't communicating regularly, but they also were letting things go, but not really letting things go. And when we do that, when we let things go, it's often not because we're being especially accommodating, but because we're not willing to be vulnerable enough to just say how we feel and expect that person to consider our feelings and to perhaps be considerate of our feelings. So we just say, oh, it's not a big deal, and we swallow it. It's not a big deal, we swallow it. It's not a big deal, we swallow it. And then we explode. And then that person who's probably been doing the same thing, if that open line of communication is not happening, they also explode, because they're like, oh, you feel that way? Well, let me tell you how I feel. And then it just escalates. And no one's hearing each other. So of course, the first thing is to be communicative all along. I mean, that's the first thing. But if you can't, for some reason, or you're in a situation where you've already gone down a road where, okay, we already are on this path of not communicating, then it's better to start as soon as possible, as in, okay, let me just, while we're not upset, while we're calm, let's go ahead and have a conversation about how I feel about X. Or if you're fine, but you don't feel like you're getting that communication from the other side, you can open that conversation up for them to share. And sometimes people don't, because they're just in the pattern of not sharing. But you opening that conversation will create a dynamic in the relationship where they feel, okay, you are interested. You want to know how I feel. You want to discuss what's going on or how I'm perceiving things. And so they will be more likely to be communicative in the future, starting with that conversation. Um, but what I want to see is who couldn't relate to what the opposite sex was saying. Show of hands. Anybody? Just like, I don't get where that other person was coming from. Okay. All right. So I want you to look at your list of emotions that you've identified in the opposite sex and write an instance in which you experience that emotion. So I see in the chat, someone said that he was confused and felt like he was getting conflicting messages, underappreciated, lost. So everything that you listed that you identified in that other person, you're going to write an instance. It doesn't have to be a story, just a simple instance of where you felt something similar. So unappreciated. Maybe you've been overlooked for a promotion that you worked really hard to get. And it's not a personal situation in the sense that it's your personal life, but it's personal when you've invested yourself in something and then it goes to someone else that you especially feel like, well, they didn't even really, I really worked hard for that. So it doesn't have to be like for like, oh, if it's a romantic situation, romantic relationship, it has to be a romantic experience. It can be anytime you felt that way. And when you do that, when you say, all right, I've identified when I have felt those same feelings, even though their reason for feeling it may not be how you would have reacted, it's not about that. It's about you relating to the feeling that they have, because feelings are never wrong. And all that person is looking for is for you to understand how they feel, not why they feel, but how they feel. So a time you felt lost, a time you felt abandoned, a time you felt unappreciated or unloved, unwanted, rejected, marginalized, whatever that is, if you can reconnect to that emotional memory, then you're pretty much where you need to be in being able to be empathetic to another person in that moment. And then you're a lot closer to understanding how to relate to other people. And so when you're in this situation, you're not then judging their feelings of whether they should have reacted that way or felt that way, but more so understanding them and where they're coming from and helping them to be on the road to healing from what may have happened in that moment or may actually be an overreaction, but it's because they haven't healed from something that happened similarly, as in the same emotion from their childhood or from some part of their past that they haven't dealt with. But having that moment of connection can help them to feel safe to be able to open up and work through those feelings and experience some healing. So, in a nutshell, don't listen to the words, listen to the meaning of what is being said. So, not, I hate the ballet, I want to go to the ballet, but I want you to care enough about me to do things because you care about me. Doesn't matter what it is. I just want you to want to be with me. So wouldn't be a Tashawn presentation without some science. So next video is going to be talking to a couple of neuroscientists about your brain on empathy.
In this circuit help us to detect other people's feelings and then produce an emotion in response to those people's emotions. So for example, there's parts of the temporal pole and the amygdala that are really important in helping us to understand other people's experiences and emotions. And these systems project to the anterior cingulate cortex that then generates this emotional reaction throughout the body, through the autonomic nervous system and the face. And that system produces this emotional reaction. Really important structure in this system is the insula. And the insula is a part of the brain that helps us to represent our internal states. So it's not enough to just have the brain produce the emotional reaction, but then our brain has to represent how the body has responded and monitor those internal cues. And once we access those internal feelings, we can better gauge our internal states and then act empathically.
This is a circuit we never realized existed. This is a circuit that has grown as the human species has grown.
So how exactly does empathy work? Let's say I'm hanging out with you. And let's say I start to get upset. Now you start to empathize. You pick up on my emotion and you start reflecting it. And not just in your brain. The more you empathize, the more your whole body can get in sync with mine. Facial expression, heartbeat, breathing, posture. Now you go further. You try to comfort me because you're obviously such a cool person, and it works. But what if you don't empathize with me? Wow, and I thought you and I were buds? And what if it's not just you and me? What if it's a whole lot of us? Well then, eventually our empathy circuits will actually start to get weaker, and we might become less empathetic to the next person we encounter. We retreat to our own little groups, our family and friends, the people we consider us as opposed to them. And everyone outside of that group becomes the other. Society breaks down. The collective empathy circuit is broken. And we don't know why, but we start to feel off. It's because we're not connecting to our fellow humans. We want to reach out, to empathize. It's in our nature. But our empathy circuits are weak. So we tend to connect less and less, especially with people who are outside of our little group, till we reach a point where, because we're so divided, we have all these terrible problems, and also because we're so divided, we can't work together to solve them. Okay, now that I've completely bummed you out, here's the good news. We can fix this. We can actually strengthen our empathy circuits. If you're old like me, you probably remember 8-minute abs.
And just crunch right up. My feet are on the ground.
Well, there's a simple exercise you can do every day to strengthen your empathy circuit. You could call it 8-minute EMPS. You know, EMPS for empathy. I'll work on it. The exercise begins when you realize you're feeling a negative emotion towards someone. Like, let's say you're online at the supermarket and I cut you off. This makes you angry, and you realize that's what you're feeling. So now here's what you can do. First, take a deep breath, or two. Next, use your imagination to try to figure out why I was so rude to you. Maybe I just found out that my mom needs surgery. Maybe someone was just rude to me. You don't have to guess the right answer. I mean, usually you won't be able to. But just trying to imagine how I'm feeling and why will strengthen your empathy circuit. And when I pick up on your empathic vibes, then I might start building up my own empathy circuit. And then these waves of empathy can start to spread
In a culture or in a society, empathy does emanate out from individuals. Those kinds of feeling states could rapidly be transmitted across people, communities, states, countries.
So empathy is, as I said, is very important for healthy or successful relationships, most importantly in a romantic relationship, because what you're experiencing at home, and we know this from being a child in the home, as well as if we've been in any long-term committed relationships or marriages, that how you're treated in your most intimate relationships, meaning the ones that are closest to you, affects how you treat others in a ripple effect in the fringes of your life. So at work, at school, your friends, the people you meet. And so even if you weren't treated with empathy as a child, or you had a lack of empathy in your prior relationships with significant others, you can change that dynamic by expressing empathy to that other person. You may, if you haven't had that type of a relationship, you may see that replication over time. And you may have expected that that's just the way it is. Oh, men are just not emotional. They're just not empathetic, or women are just selfish or self-centered. But there's a possibility that your lack of willingness to be vulnerable or to show empathy is creating a dynamic in which they also are on their defense. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy type situation. So someone has to be the first to give. Someone has to be the first to open up and to change that pattern. And if it's your pattern in your relationships, then it definitely has something to do with you. And the good news is that that means that you have the power to change it. So I do have this scripture from Ephesians here. This is another video that actually doesn't have any words, but I went ahead and added some words to it. And this is just a visual demonstration of Ephesians 4 and what we've talked about thus far.
Ephesians chapter 4. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But to each one of us grace has been given as Christ apportioned it. This is why it says, when he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people. What does he ascended mean, except that he also descended to the lower earthly regions? He who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe. So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. And insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding, and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality, so as to indulge in every kind of impurity. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others, according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you.
So this gentleman didn't have any conversation with this other person, but he saw that this person was in need and he saw something that he could do. Now, granted, as you can see from the beginning of the video, he was just like, who's this? What's going on over here? But he had an opportunity to be mentally connected to others who went through different things, different experiences, and it pricked his heart to have this care, this concern for another person. And so, although in the video, he saw other people's situations and experiences, as I was saying earlier, you've had experiences, you've had situations that you can connect to. But the point of what the video was showing is what the monologuist was saying in the last video. You don't know that person's story. You don't know what they've been through. Even if it's a person that you're getting to know and you're conversing with them, you're talking to them, maybe you're dating them, you're learning them. You don't know why, the why of it. You don't know why they react the way they do, the reason they behave the way they do. And so that's why many of us in leadership have said over the different sessions that you have to give grace. You definitely need grace. And you would want to give the same grace that you would desire to have, because we all have stuff. And there's moments where we can look back and say, you know, I probably could have handled that better. Maybe I was more upset about something else than that actual situation. And the person that dealt with you in that situation, they may have excused you by not reacting, or you may have triggered them and they lashed back. But the point is that grace helps us to not escalate or not to compound the hurt that's already there. So considering that possibly the reaction that a person has may have nothing to do with you, the behavior that someone exhibits is actually because they're going through a lot more than you realize. It gives them, or takes away, I should say, the excuse that they may have to feel as though no one cares, or that the world is against them, or that they are alone. And certainly, if you are have a situation or an opportunity, and you can see that you can do something that seems very small. I mean, this gentleman probably has plenty of other shoes. So him giving this pair of shoes is not a major thing for him, but for someone who has no shoes, it's a huge thing for them.
Amen. Amen.
So you can pray in that moment in line at Walmart, or well, we don't really get in line at the bank anymore, but in any situation where you're encountering someone, you can pray and ask God, what in this moment would you have me to do as a vessel for you to be able to plant a seed, make a difference for this person? So you may be thinking that you still feel at times like you're not sure how to express empathy, like what to say. It's not comfortable for you, and not necessarily like I don't have hangups. I just don't know what to say because it's hard. I mean, I've had actually 3 people in my team over the last 3 weeks lose someone very close to them. And though I've lost people, it's difficult for me to talk to them about it because I do think about how I felt, and there wasn't anything that could be really said. Lots of things that were said that were just like, okay, I don't know what that was. So, everybody feels uncomfortable in highly emotional situations because you don't want to make things worse, but you don't know how to make things better. And so, like I said, sometimes it's just being there. Sometimes it's just a hug. It's just a hand on the shoulder, a embrace, a listening ear. I'm sorry you're going through this. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be grandiose. But I like to, give people tools. That's another thing I like to do. So, oops, come on. So, here's some verbal strategies on things that you can do verbally and action wise to be able to relate in a situation or circumstance. You can express appreciation by acknowledging that they are opening up to you. For anybody that knows how difficult it is because they're uncomfortable opening up, excuse me, you may be that person that doesn't open up, but for some reason everybody opens up to you. And so you can acknowledge that, that appreciation that they trusted you enough to share. You can show that you're listening by restating what you've heard. And sometimes people are so in their feelings that they're not acknowledging what's going on. They're just kind of being tossed to and fro by their feelings. So you restating to them what you're hearing can sometimes get them to focus and come down a little bit from being in a chaotic emotional state. And that gives them a point of peace. Peace is not necessarily not feeling what they're feeling, but just that it's not controlling them and they're able to be in their feelings and acknowledge their feelings and process their feelings and then come to a point of acceptance and healing. You can acknowledge that their strength or their courage or that they may be so into the situation that they're not realizing that although it's not going the way they want to, that they're doing a good job of navigating things. That, if this is not an easy thing, and don't discount the fact that you are okay. In this moment, you don't feel okay, but you are doing, you're going along, you're handling things, you're progressing. And this is encouragement without the silver lining part that was talked about earlier. So not negating it, but just acknowledging that, okay, this is difficult and you are handling it. And then of course, the next thing of, I'm here for you if you need me. What can I do to help? And then just checking in. If you know that it's an ongoing situation, you may want to just send them a text or give them a call and just to ask how they're doing. When you're allowing them a place to speak, they're less likely to take the how are you as that I don't really want to know how you are. I just expect you to say I'm fine. But they'll actually respond with something substantive. But even if they don't, just you checking on them means a lot, because there are some people that never get checked on. No one ever, even if they have shared, nobody circles back and says, hey, how's everything going? Are you good? Do you still need to talk? And then there are some people that they don't necessarily want to talk about it, but they might need just the acknowledgement that, yeah, you heard me and you know that I'm going through something and you cared enough to circle back. when you're in a romantic relationship, especially if it's a marriage, what happens to them happens to you. So even if you don't understand why they're feeling the way that they're feeling or taking it the way they're taking it, if you have made that connection emotionally to say, okay, I don't see it the way you see it, but I understand this is how you feel, then you're able to navigate with them in that process. Because if they're sad, it's very unkind to be frolicking and happy, and or vice versa. If something great has happened to them, to not be able to celebrate with them because you haven't been able to make the connection of, okay, I'm very happy for you, I'm very excited for you. That makes a person feel like they're alone. And in a relationship or a marriage, the feeling of being alone is very diminishing to the health of the relationship. So let's talk about some obstacles. And you may recall a time in which you felt empathy but struggled to show it. Like, it wasn't that you had any stronghold or anything, but you were just like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know, you feel kind of like frozen or stuck. Or you might have completely missed the someone's distress, and then you realize later, or they tell you later, I told this to you, or I said these things, and you don't even know what they're talking about. You don't remember any of what they're saying. And sometimes that's because we're so focused on what we have going on at the time, or we have unresolved trauma or issues that we haven't dealt with, or we might just have judgment about certain things. So I think task focused is something that comes up a lot because we have busy lives, and we're trying to get to the next thing, and we're looking at we're so focused on tasks that even while we're finishing one thing, we're already mentally moving to the next thing. And then there's not room for not only for our feelings and our processing, but then actually seeing and acknowledging and relating to other people. And it's not to say that it's a bad thing, like you're doing a bad thing. It's just more that you have to give time for what's important, and people are always more important than things. Doesn't mean you have to not achieve goals and be driven or anything like that, but just having balance. Unresolved trauma sometimes can cause us to be unemotional about certain things, as in we have either intellectualized our feelings or we have completely shut them down. So if we see somebody that's crying, and we had an experience where crying was treated as being a very negative thing, you were punished for crying, you were bullied for crying, anything like that, then when someone else does it, you may have a hard time feeling any type of empathy for that, because you have been reprogrammed not to be empathetic in that area. And so that is trauma that you've experienced that's unresolved. Crying is actually very healthy. It's an outlet for your emotions. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a punk thing. It's not, like, oh, only women or, children, or it's not any of those things. There's something to be said about the fact that, of course, one of the first things we do when we're born is cry, and we don't lose that ability throughout our lives. Why would God give us that ability to do if it's not important and significant. We have moments in time where we choose, we feel it and we shut it down, we lock it down, like, I'm not going to cry. Sometimes we're in church and we're feeling, the spirit move and we don't want to, let it out. And those things are happening because God is trying to heal us. He's trying to get some things out of us, and we're holding on with a death grip to that thing that isn't healthy, that's actually causing us harm. And so don't resist. You might start on your own, like, oh, I'm not going to cry in front of other people. I'm one of those people. I spent most of my life where I would not cry in front of other people because it made me a target. And I just refused. I'm not going to let anybody know that they affected me. Now, especially, I think one of the things that happens when you do become a parent is that some things just don't seem important anymore. But I have, to some degree, I'm not going to say I'm 100%. I'm not going to be dishonest with you. I have come to a place where I will cry in front of other people, but it's definitely not something that I'm quick to do. And I'm much more likely to do it for other people than for myself. But my life experiences have shown me how to be softer, how to be kinder and gentler to other people, because I didn't get that. And so even though I didn't have it, I have been able to learn a way to give that safe place, that vulnerability for other people to be able to have it, even when I wasn't able to. And so in me doing that, in being that for other people, sometimes you can find healing for yourself. And then judgment that comes from that trauma, the judgment of being told that your feelings are not okay, that you shouldn't be vulnerable, you shouldn't express these things, you shouldn't feel this way. That directly leans over to judging other people's feelings when they express the same thing. So you're identifying it and you're identifying with it, and you're judging just like you judge yourself when you feel that, or when you've been judged. You're passing that on to the other person, like, it ain't that serious. What's the problem? Get over it. All of these different things that we're judging ourselves, and we're harshly judging other people because we are not giving ourselves grace. We're not giving grace to others. So the resolution, and I didn't put solution, I intentionally put resolution, because it's something you have to purpose to do on a regular basis. And it takes practice to reflect on those moments, be present in that moment, and to look back if is it brought to your attention that you missed something, to be aware of what's happening around you, what's happening with people that are in your life. Excuse me, and to forgive, not just forgiving others, but forgiving you. So the judgments that you've placed on yourself, for the mistakes you've made in your life, for the things that you've been blamed for, even if it's something that you actually did, there's forgiveness that needs to take place by you, even if other people are not doing it. So we're not perfect. That's why God talks about forgiveness in his word. And certainly if he's forgiving you, then you can forgive you. These are some basic things that you can do that will remove some obstacles when it comes to being empathetic to other people. It's not a comprehensive list, but it's some beginning actions that will lead to some other things that you can recognize in yourself that you might need to do. Some of it may involve you going to therapy. It may be helpful for you to do some of the things we talked about before about journaling and maybe going back to some people and having conversations for closure or for just acknowledgement that, you know, I didn't handle that the best way and I'm sorry. They may have moved on, they may be over it, but it's a release for you as much as it is for them to say, okay, you know, this person cared enough to come back and acknowledge their wrong. Or to say, you know, this is how I felt in this situation. You may or may not get what you want out of it as far as that other person, but you're doing it for you. You're not doing it necessarily because you're looking for something outside of yourself and God's will. So hopefully everyone has got their playlist together. And so in the chat, I would love for everyone to share first to share their angry song. The song, and this is a song that you listen to that allows you to express your negative emotions, your rage, your frustration about a situation or a person. It's a way to express it in a constructive way, meaning that you're not lashing out on someone, you're not hurting or harming anyone, but it allows you to fully express in singing it, in dancing to it, how those negative feelings that you have about that person or situation. And this is for those who are like, oh no, I don't. You can't ignore your feelings. It may seem like you can because we're able to do it for a period of time, as in you can bottle it down, bottle it up or swallow it for time or a period of time. But as we saw in the video earlier in the breakup, at some point it's going to bubble up. At some point it's going to come out. And it's not necessarily going to come out when you want it to. It's not necessarily going to come out the way that you want it to. And so, and it tends to control some aspects of how you walk through life, the way that you deal with other people, the way you deal with yourself sometimes. So it's best that you get it out in a way that you can control it. So if you don't have an angry song, then no problem, take notes. But for those that do, love to hear it, or I should say read it. I'm gonna take notes. I have one that I share with people when I notice that they don't seem to have an outlet, because sometimes you don't have that person to talk to or that situation, and you're just like, okay, you know what? Especially like if you're in the office, you know, like let me just put my headphones on for a minute and or get in my car and sing like nobody's listening to this song that's going to help me to be able to come back out and go into this meeting and be professional and not give them what they really deserve. um okay cool. So we got Just for Me by Kirk Franklin, Steely Dan, Fight Song by Rachel Platt or Platten, Don't Start Now. Okay, cool. So my song is Hate on Me by Jill Scott. And I think that the song just kind of needs to be representative of how you feel, because there's different shades of feelings. It's not just like if you're angry, you're just angry. You know, you're feeling that way because you're feeling like you're getting undeserved negative attention or reactions from people, or you're feeling misunderstood and you're frustrated about the situation. You're voice is being taken from you, different reasons why you're getting to that place that kind of colors what the song's lyrics are going to bring out or help you to express. All right, so next one is oh well, let me not forget this. So you still should talk to whomever you're angry with, if it's a person. But you want to get out the raw emotion so that when you're having the conversation, it can actually be productive. If you're just all over the place, as somebody said about the breakup clip, then you're probably going to be challenged to get anywhere in that conversation. Even if they don't escalate and blow up like that, they're probably not going to be able to follow what you're saying, and they're not going to really acknowledge what you're trying to express because you are just all over the place in your feelings in your head. But once you have been able to kind of get the edge off, then you can kind of order your thoughts and be able to have a productive conversation. You can be poised and actually communicate. Doesn't mean that you're not still angry, but there's going to be it's much more likely that there's going to be a healthier outcome from the conversation, because at least you're going to get across what you really need to say. How they react is how they react, but all you can do is be clear and communicate, what you need to say. So next song is your confidence song. Okay. So there's a song that you should have that when you walk into a room, especially if you're feeling like uncomfortable or insecure, this is your theme song that you're strutting in the room with. Okay, whatever your strut looks like, you're coming in like, you know what, I got this, I'm good. You're playing this song in your head, whether you actually have the song on in your headphones, whatever, or it's just like you're hearing it in your virtual memory. And this is the song that helps you to feel like you can. Calvin, are you singing the song to us? Oh, Calvin's playing it for us. Yeah, this is the song that you should always have in your back pocket, because I don't care how confident you are, I don't care how together you have it. There's always a situation in which that will come up in which you feel like, okay, I wasn't ready for this, I didn't expect this, I don't know, I'm not sure. No one is impervious to having those moments of doubt. And so you might not have time to call a friend, so you just like, okay, let me turn my mental playlist on and play this song so I can get myself together. Sometimes you get called on the carpet. Like we used to go to a church where the pastor liked this thing called pop-up preaching. So you just are minding your own business, you came to hear the word, and it's like, you right there, let's go ahead. Let's hear what you have to say about the word. And so you're like, okay, I was not prepared to actually talk, and now you want me to give a whole thing on the scripture. Yeah. So, or at the job, what's your opinion? What do you think? Like, I think that you should go on to the next person, is what I think. So you want to have that in your back pocket. And let's see. So you've got your anger song, your personal theme song, and now your happy song. And your happy song is something that you should not play it because you're trying to avoid negative feelings, because you do need to process your feelings. But sometimes it's not the time. Sometimes you need to get it together because you got something you got to do. So the happy song gives you that reprieve from your emotions to say, all right, I'm going to table it until I have, a space to feel what I need to feel. But right now I have to deal with this situation. I have to, help this person. I have to go into this meeting. I have to do this business, whatever it is that's going on. You are not in a place of being able to sit in your feelings and process things. And so you have a song that lifts you to be able to function in that time to do what you need to do. And that means, yes, you need to go back to those feelings later, but at that time you're going to be able to kind of set them aside and connect to that grateful, thankful part of yourself that says, okay, even though I'm going through this in this moment, I know that overall God has me, I'm okay. And then a peaceful song. And so a peaceful song, as I said, peace is not necessarily negation of things, but more that it brings you to a place of being kind of settled. If you're feeling being pulled to and fro, chaos, people pulling you, you're not really being able to focus on things, or that you're not able to sit in your own, feelings because the world or people or things are being too loud. Sometimes it's a fasting and praying type of a moment, but the bottom line is that you kind of need to kind of be brought back to yourself, is how I kind of think of it, and have a reminder of who you are and whose you are. And so it's like, okay, let me remember who I am. What people are saying about me, this situation that's going on, these things that are going on, that is not what I identify as. That's not who God said I am. And just because these things are happening doesn't mean that what God told me isn't true. That doesn't mean that I am what these things say I am, or these things that are trying to discourage me, distract me, are true. So it looks like we got a lot of songs in the chat, which is great. And okay, we got a question. So I'll answer that after I just say this right quick. So I think I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. If you don't have a playlist, or you don't have a song for all of these things, there's been some great suggestions made in the chat. So take notes, check them out and see if they give you those feelings. And if you're on these different streaming services, usually some of them will suggest alternatives, especially like YouTube, like, oh, you're interested in this song? Here's another song. So you can kind of find those ones that were good for you, but it's likely you have them, you just haven't kind of given them an official, name of, yeah, this is my song where I'm like, yeah, I feel good about myself. This is a song I listen to when I'm getting ready to go somewhere. So you just want to have kind of a short list. You might have a few of them, but you want to have at least one for each. And so let's see. Maurice says, okay, thanks, Keisha. What are your thoughts about relating to emotional feelings objectively, similar to how one relates to the feeling of discomfort from a stomach ache? It helps me to embrace the feeling and take full responsibility for it. This empowers me in that experience. Then changing my perspective from judgment to understand shifts the emotional feeling immediately for me. Okay, we got one last video, and then we'll talk about that. Okay. So this is going to bring us full circle in a very simple, empathetic conversation. And yes, it's a cartoon, but it's a very good example. So I want you to pay attention to not just the words, but also the body language.
No! No, 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 you can't take my rocket to the top! Riley and I go to the moon! Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this. Oh, here's a fun game. You point to the train station and we all go there. Won't that be fun? Come on, let's go to the train station.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time, we had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
So you saw that initially the approach was sympathetic, like, yeah, that's terrible. We got something we got to get done here. You're good. Let me try to cheer you up. And then a follow-up of, okay, you're upset. You have a reason to be upset. And I'm sorry that you're upset. I feel for you. And that feeling was expressed. And then they were able to let go. And they knew that there was something else that needed to happen, but they needed to deal with that in that moment. And so she helped him deal with that. All right. Where's my? Okay. So we've been having these quizzes all along, so I didn't want to disappoint. For those that want to kind of take their temperature on their level of empathy, here's a 4, always do free, or I try to do free quizzes. So there's, of course, paid everything out there, but these are some free quizzes. And before anybody asks, yes, I will put it in the event comments. So you can take a picture of it, or you can refer back when after the session. I'll put it in the comments. But these are just a few of the popular quizzes on your level of empathy. Okay, so that is all of the content for today. And so we're going to start the discussion with Maurice's question. And if anybody else has any comments or questions, please feel free to share or ask. And Jenny's over there working it out. I need to do the same thing. So what I can tell you, Maurice, is that I think it's different strategies for different people. There is a physical response that occurs, as has been said in different presentations. You do have a physical feeling that comes from your emotional feelings. And so it could be a stomach ache, it could be a headache. When I have low feelings, I actually get this really bad ache in my left index finger. And it's almost like if I'm trying to ignore how I'm feeling, it's like, yeah, this is happening. So part of it is knowing yourself. And I am 100% guilty of intellectualizing my feelings. I was taught that my feelings were my fault as a kid, and that whatever anyone did to, to me was me just being overly sensitive, or that I needed to deal with it. And so it caused me to internalize and to think a lot. And so I can't necessarily undo that, but what I have tried to do is what you similarly described, is that I try to think about what has happened, how I'm feeling about it, why I'm feeling that way about it, and what, if anything, that I can do, and just giving myself the grace of my feelings are okay, and making sure that I'm not connecting to anything residual, as in, okay, is it really about this, or am I actually feeling this way because of some other thing that occurred? And I'm pretty good about, even when I'm talking to someone about what's going on, I'm pretty good about letting them be clear on the compound situation, but it being related to them, as in, okay, because sometimes we can't remove ourselves, like, okay, I have to keep dealing with this person for X reason, their family, or it's a job, or whatever. And so I will make sure to remind them that, this isn't the first conversation we've had about this. And, I'm not expecting them to necessarily change, but I do want them to understand that this is why emotionally I'm where I'm at. It's not that I'm like a crazy emotional person, or I'm out of control, or anything like that, but it's the fact that this is an ongoing issue. And so I'm not going to change my feelings about this disrespect, or, lack of appreciation, whatever it is. I still feel the way I told you I felt before. It's still a problem. And if I have to be uncomfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable, because I'm not going to give you a pass by not telling you how I feel, and you not having to deal with that, which is sometimes what we might do when we intellectualize, is that we kind of like, okay, I understand it, and we process it and dismiss it, and don't hold people accountable for what they're doing to us. And so they feel like they can just keep doing it because either they don't know, or they know that you'll allow it. And so holding them accountable may not be, I mean, you can't control them, but you can say, all right, I know that we still have to deal with each other, but I'm not going to let you think that you're right or okay in what you're doing. I'm going to make sure that I'm letting you know that this is a problem, and this is why it's a problem. Anybody else have anything to share, or any questions?
I want to step back in your question when we were listening to the opposite sex on the breakup, where you were asking the women to identify what the male was saying. And quickly, Sean and Calvin was like, oh, I can relate, or that's a lot. And what I took away is he had taken a new job to elevate their economic situation so that she potentially would not have to work someday. And so he just wanted to rest when he got home, because he had moved his comfortable, job atmosphere into an uncomfortable situation to accommodate what he thinks or thought would make her happy. And none of that was verbally said, but it was kind of this underlining, don't you know the sacrifices and the changes that I'm making to financially take care of us? And I just want to do, stuff I used to do before I had to take this change in economic change. I want to go to the game. I want to sit on the couch. But she couldn't hear that because she had her response to what you aren't. And I think we often look for the response before we look for the reason that either of us have gotten to the point that we just slinging now. We're just saying what our purpose and our feelings, and no long we've dismissed the other person altogether. And then that's what it ends up. Then fine, I'll just leave because he slung hard, and she reached up and caught that ball and said, okay, if this really what you said, I'm going to deliver it back to you. Bye. And it's so often that is how we exchange, because in my opinion, empathy isn't the initial thought. I want you to hear me. I'm not really wanting to hear you. So I just wanted to touch on that because two of the men did comment, and so I really want to hear their thoughts of what the woman was really saying.
Come on, Tim.
Yeah, I've learned a lot over the last like 15 years. I don't know if this is true of all guys, but my father was a senior design engineer. And the reason I mention that at all is because a lot of men want to fix it. So I was like my father, where whatever it was, just let me fix it so we can move on. And nobody ever taught me to sit down and shut up and just listen. This is something I had to learn. So I did have a girlfriend that was really yelling and screaming at me and everything. And I said, would you just be quiet? And then I made a mistake and I said, shut up. Just let me fix it. And she got, don't want you to fix it. Don't you understand? I just want you to listen. I'm like, well, I'll listen, but then I want to fix it. No, you can't fix this. I just want to hear me out. Just listen, okay? I was like, whoa, this was pretty intense. So I said, okay. So I listened, and it was something I couldn't fix, but she just got it all out and then said, okay, I'm cool. I'm right now. I said, oh, she said, you understand? I just wanted you to listen. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to listen. And I'm thinking, so I learned that. So now I'm more like, well, what's going on? Please tell me what's going on. I need to know so I can maybe better understand. I'm not here to fix it. I'm putting away my wrenches, my screwdrivers, my tools. I have nothing. I just want to listen. And that's something you can't put a price on. And it's like, I think she was frustrated, if I get it right, because she wanted to do a lot of things that I guess he didn't care to do it. Like he said, he hated the opera, but you got to sometimes compromise. It may not be wild about the opera, but if she really loves the opera is great. Just go to the opera. It's not, it's just find out what she likes to do and just do it, because there's things you want to do that she may not like to do, but there has to be some kind of a compromise or connection. And if you don't like sports, that's okay, but you can still go to the game. Maybe you'll find out that it's cool and you like it, but it's like, I know I've heard all my life that communications is the number one thing, but sometimes it's just so hard for us to get there. It's like there's a wall there, and there's people that go like this. I can understand both points of view. I really do. The guy was tired; he just wanted to relax, and she was yelling at him. But I understand her too. That she was like, "You're not listening to me. I want you to spend some time with me. I want you to show that you love me." And I think with the business with the flowers, I hate flowers; they're a waste of money. But I think maybe she was saying that for him to say, "Really, you really feel that way? They're a waste of money." Then she might have said, "No, I'm just saying that."
Yeah.
Because, so sometimes somebody will say something, but they really feel the opposite way because they're putting out something to test you to see how you react to it. That's maybe I'm totally wrong, but that's how I feel. It's like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean you hate flowers? Talk to me instead of saying, all right, screw the flowers. I don't care. I'm not going to give you flowers. But he's blocking himself from her. I think I've said too much. I want to give other people a
No,
chance.
no, wait. I want to jump in here. Well,
Yes.
when he was buying the flowers, they were broke. He didn't have that much money
Yeah.
because he had a different job. And so she
Right.
was trying to give him a cool pass. Like, don't waste your money on that. We don't have the money
Oh,
for
okay.
that.
I
But
missed
now
that.
they had transitioned to an economic bracket that she was like, okay, we ain't broke no more. So you don't stay there. Like, so I mean, the movie is wonderful if you go back and watch it because they were, she was doing her job and he was kind of existing, but she didn't want to tax him with that kind of expense early on.
I see.
But
Yeah.
they moved past that. And so he was trying to still dig in the basket, and she was like, "We ain't broke no more." So, yeah.
So here's the thing to just go deeper. She wasn't saying, I want you to buy me flowers. She was saying, I want you to think of me, even when I'm not around. And that might be flowers, that might be a card, that might be a candy bar. When we know someone, when we are sharing our lives with another person, we get to know their stuff. And if you're thinking about that person, even when they're not around, you may be somewhere and say, oh, they would love this, or this reminds me of them. And you bring that home, or, if you see a little clip, a little funny video, anything, and you send that to them and they're like, oh, you were thinking about me. That's what it means to them. Of course, the thing is something that's like, yeah, I do like this, but more than that, it says, you think about me even when I'm not around. And when it comes to men and women, because we do believe in a Christian culture that women submit to men in a marriage, it's very important that a woman feel considered and thought of, because she's trusting that you're doing what's best for the family. And so if you're showing that you're thinking of her, then she feels better about the fact that she's entrusting you to make decisions, because you have your presence of mind. She's there even when she's not there. So that's the deeper meaning of, why didn't you do this for me? Not that surface thing, but truly, okay, I'm not seeing, like, you're not doing things when I'm not around, and then when you come home, you want to sit down, you see me running around, you're not like, well, what can I do to help you? So you're truly not thinking about me at all, because in his mind, he was saying, well, my life demonstrates that I'm thinking of you. I'm working hard. I'm trying to escalate our financial situation. I'm doing all of these things to sacrifice. So of course I'm thinking of you. And she's saying, well, it's the small things. Yes, you're doing those things, but I'm also doing these things. But the funny thing about it was that of all the things that was being said, they both weren't feeling appreciated by the other.
I just want to add one more thing. I know people that, guys especially, I don't ever hear them say I love you, because they say, well, my wife knows I love her. I'm like, no, you got to say it. Well, why? She knows. I'm like, wow, okay. Because being single, it's like, I don't have anybody, but I told them it makes sense to me that you got to use your words. You can't just assume that. You got to say it, and they can't say it. I don't know what it is. They're like, well, I'm rough and tough. I'm tough. I can't say those. I love you. I'll show it. I'll fix this. I'll fix the sink. I'll fix the car. I'll paint the house. I said, that's all great, but you got to still say it. And I'm like, nah, I don't know, maybe I have to think about it. I thought, why is that so hard? Anyway.
Yeah. Unfortunately, some people haven't had that experience. It's not familiar to them
No.
to be told that. And I always think of it as a line of emotion or a dead vine. Essentially, we desire certain things as children and growing up, and when we don't get them, it's like a muscle atrophied and it dies, and there's hurt associated with that. My mom or my dad never told me that they loved me, and so now for me to do it, it touches on that sensitive spot of what I didn't get that I really needed, what I really wanted. And so the way we protect ourselves is we say, well, I don't need that. They don't need that. That's not needed. They showed me I was good enough. And if we do it, then it's almost like reconnecting to that hurt part of ourselves that didn't get what we needed. There was another question that Maurice put in the chat. Is it possible to hold someone accountable for their actions without experiencing emotional discomfort? No. No, it is not. For the simple fact that you're being vulnerable in that moment to say that you care. I care that you said that you did that. That hurt my feelings. That made me mad. I mean, you're letting that person know that they affected you in some way. And that is showing vulnerability, because you can't have been impacted without having cared. If you're indifferent, then you wouldn't even be bringing it up. But you expressing it means that you cared. And so, yeah, that does mean that they have some degree of impact on you. I won't say control for this reason, which is the second part of what Maurice asked. Who would you say is responsible for your emotional feelings? It seems to be that whomever's responsible is the one with the power. And you're right, the person who's responsible is the one with the power. And who's that? That's you. Because you decide how to feel. The person can do whatever they choose to do, but you decide how you're going to feel about it. You decide if you're going to be indifferent. You decide if you're going to be hurt, angry, sad, frustrated, happy. Whatever you feel is your decision entirely. Now, it's easy to get it confused with, well, of course, if somebody cusses me out, then I'm going to feel. But in fact, if you think about 3 different random people and they did the same exact action, you're going to feel differently depending on those 3 different people's presence in your life. If it's a total stranger, you're going to be like, okay, then. And you're going to probably be kind of indifferent about it. Like, I don't know what's going on with you, but all right. I mean, the blood of Jesus. Whereas if it's, your mom, you're going to feel one way. If it's a friend, you're going to feel another thing. And if it's your friend who's going through some stuff, you're going to feel differently than if it's a friend that's like, okay, where'd that come from? Like, so truly how you feel is in your control and it is your decision. There's a influence that a person can have, especially if they're close to you. They're going to obviously impact you more than people who aren't. But just as we were talking earlier in the presentation, when you give people grace, the first thing is, okay, was that actually for me? Is that actually about me? Or is this something else that's going on that has nothing to do with me and I'm internalizing it and feeling the way that I'm feeling when in fact they're going through something and it just spilled over on me. So the first thing is to pray for them, because if they're dealing with something, whether it's associated with you or not, they're dealing with something. And you can't fix it. All you can do is pray about it as far as that not knowing, and that you not be infected with whatever negativity is coming at you. Excuse me. But if you have a good relationship with them, then prayerfully they'll circle back and say, I'm sorry about the way that I talked to you. I didn't mean that. I was dealing with something else, or somebody just did such and such to me, whatever. But if they didn't, especially if it's a pattern, then sometimes we need to bring it to their attention because they don't realize it. They don't recognize that, yeah, the way that you're showing up, you may have the intention of X, but the way that it's being experienced on the other side of what your intentions are is this. And sometimes people's intentions get confused with the way that they're actually coming off. And they don't know that because they're on their side of it. And they need you to bring it to their attention and say, yeah, it's not working. It's making people feel this way, or it's making people see you this way. Can you care and feel the emotion, but not blame the person for making you feel that way? Well, of course you can. I'm not going to say it's easy, but when you do take the time to talk to someone about things that happen, the understanding diminishes the rawness of the emotion. Because just like how was said in a few different clips, if someone does something hurtful to you in a vacuum, you have no idea what's going on. And then you talk to them and they say, I just found out that, my sister was diagnosed with an illness. Even though it has nothing to do with what happened, you're going to feel different. You just are, because you realize, what happened wasn't that big a deal compared to what was going on in this person's head. Sometimes dealing with things in our mind causes us to lack patience in the way that we communicate with other people. But at the same time, sometimes it helps people to realize that, I'm not managing my feelings well, or I thought I was fine, but I'm not. But if we're not giving people that reflection back to them of, this is what is kind of being shown, then they may be thinking that they're masking things well or they're handling things well when in fact they're not. And they're avoiding dealing with things, and it's causing more issues than they realize. But it also will make you feel better to know that, okay, this wasn't about me, number one. I mean, sometimes it is, but if it's not, it wasn't about me. And the intent to do harm wasn't there. Because sometimes that's the part that hurts, is that it feels like you're coming for me. Why are you coming for me? And in fact, they're not. Yes. Good point, Ellie. She said, it seems to me that assuming good intent or assuming there was not malintent is so crucial. And that's true. You don't know the person's intention, just like other people don't necessarily know yours. And so taking the time to not kind of jump to conclusions on what's going on with that person and giving them a place to kind of voice that, gives them that opportunity to clarify. And that's not to say that sometimes it's not going to be what it is, but but it also helps foster better communication overall. Does anybody else have any comments or questions, or do any other men want to weigh in on Donna's question about their perspective on what Jennifer Aniston was feeling? Sean Williams. You said
Um,
that you had some PTSD from that video.
Not PTSD. I mean, I thought the video was cool. I was able to relate. You know, it's amazing how, you know, we can say one thing, but the other person can hear something totally different. Um, you know, and that happens, that just happens. So sometimes I literally ask the person, you know, to repeat back to me what they said so that I could really understand, like, did you hear exactly what I'm saying? Um, that's why I get into the habit of saying, you know, I'll say things like, are you getting it? Do you understand where I'm coming from? You know, stuff like that. So, and if somebody's talking to me, I'll usually parrot or paraphrase what they said so that I can make sure that I'm hearing exactly what they're saying. But I mean, it's you know, it's kind of funny because we think one thing, and you know what, or we say one thing or do one thing, but the message that we're sending is totally different from what the message that we think we're sending. That's why it's important for men and women to really just try to understand where the other person is coming from. You know, Stephen Colby wrote in his book, seek to understand, not to be understood. So we really got to learn to just understand where the person is coming from. You know, so you know that's you know that's where I'm at with it. But like I said, it was funny as hell. Definitely caught some flashbacks. Some funny, some traumatizing, but it's definitely real life. So yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I think when we look back on some situations of miscommunication or just assuming that the person knows things, and then we have an interaction and they're like, okay, I did not communicate as well as I thought. I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and she's a foster mom. And this is what she said, which was really funny to me. Okay. She said, this is funny only to other parents. Okay. I get this. But she said, and this was a 6 and a 7-year-old, two little boys. And she said, they don't appreciate anything I do. I'm the one that makes sure that they wash their little behinds and that they eat good food and that they dress in clean clothes. And I just was dying laughing. And I said, you understand that in their mind, they're doing that for you. They don't care about any of that stuff. They want to eat junk food and they want to run around filthy. They don't want to wear clean clothes. They want to wear their favorite Pokemon shirt. I don't care how dirty it is. They don't want to take a bath. Ew. They're doing that for you. And it was funny because she's listening to me and she's like, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about when I was a kid, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like I was doing my mom a favor and she wasn't appreciating my sacrifices. And that's what happens a lot in our romantic relationships is that we do feel like we're showing up at our best and doing our best for each other. And we're so focused on that we don't always recognize that that is being reciprocated in the best way they know how. We're doing it the best way we know how, and they're doing it the best way they know how. And so sometimes it's recalibrating what we appreciate. Like, okay, they're not doing the thing. I can't say this, if you loved me, you would do these things. I have to look at how do they express love? And if I am measuring them by the stick at which they have set for themselves, they love me unbelievably well. It's just that they're not doing what I have learned to think of as love. So I have a big family. I have 9 siblings. And one of the biggest complaints for most of my childhood and early adulthood was that my dad never called anyone. And it was like, he doesn't love us. He doesn't check on us. He doesn't call us. And so me and my dad are the most alike of all of my siblings, except maybe one of my little brothers. We're kind of the same way. And so I for my more emotional siblings, I would tell them, I say, we want to be loved unconditionally, right? So why do we have all these conditions for the people that love us? Why do we have all these rules? Like, love me the way that I am. This is how I showed up. Love me like this. But for you, here's my contract. Here's my rules of engagement. If you love me, you're going to do this, and you're going to talk to me this way, and you're going to say these things, and you're going to act like this. It goes both ways. And so the funny thing to me was my dad was a workaholic. And I say was because he finally retired, but he was a workaholic, like in the video, he's a workaholic because he was raised to believe that that's how you show love to your loved ones. You give them the best life possible. And so he's like, what I need to call you for, And then on the flip side, he felt hurt because the only time that he was called was because, can you give me, I need, well, it was always wanting something. It wasn't, hey, daddy, how are you? How's everything? Are you okay? Are you good? It was not that. It was a handout request for something. And so that just reinforced for him that, okay, so this is who I am to you. And so if I'm going to have a place in your life, then I have to continue to produce because otherwise you don't have time for me. But at the end, there wasn't that communication of understanding of, no, I really do love you and I really do care how you're doing. But because you don't call me, I don't figure you want to have that type of relationship. So I don't have that type of relationship. And so a lot of assuming. And at some point, it just has to be you know what? If I want something different, then I have to do something different. And if it's, oh, well, I want you to check on me, well, I'm going to check on you. And so because of that, because I'm like that, like I don't call people unless I got something to say. And people call me and I don't have anything to say. And I'm like, okay, so why are we on the phone? But I've had to learn that, okay, for whatever reason in this moment, you want to talk to me. And so being appreciative of the fact that I hold some importance at which that person wants to engage me. They want to hear my opinion. They want to, whatever. But I started texting my dad, and I wasn't a texter at all, but I would just text him every few days. I love you. How are you? You're one of the best people in my life. Just something encouraging and positive, not asking for anything. Because I didn't feel appreciated or thought of in my life. And so if you're that person in your life that feels like I hold up the world for everybody in my life, I take care of everyone else. Sometimes it's expressing what you want to hear from other people to others. And I can't really explain it, but for some reason, saying it to other people somehow makes you feel better. Like I didn't hear it from somebody, but saying it to someone else makes me feel good. Like, like I'm putting it out there in the world, that what I want back, I'm giving out. And I believe that, God smiles on that. that God has a in our future, in our path, those things that we didn't get at some point, that they're there for us, especially if we invest that in others. Jenny's funny. Jenny said a Kit Kat and some lilies would have ended all that arguing. Yeah, it's something simple. And I had a similar conversation. I'm not an arguer, but when I was married, my late husband, I was like, and we were definitely broke. We were definitely broke. We were in our 20s and we were broke. And that was basically, like, I make sure that you have, underwear without holes in it and socks and, clothes that fit. And at that time we just had our son, and, I make sure that we have the things that we need. I make this dollar holla. So, I mean, when you go, even if you're going to the gas station, you can't give me, some peanut M&Ms. Like, you can't, we just to say you thought of me in some way. And he in the moment, sometimes people don't acknowledge that, okay, yeah. But then if they are listening, they will make adjustments. Like, he hated the fact that I didn't cook. That really bothered him. And I was like, I'm not from the South. We don't even do breakfast, really. I'm from Southern California. Okay. But because it was so important to him, I learned how to cook. I hated cooking, but I learned how to cook because it was so important to him. And I mean, he was way better at it than me, but it wasn't about that. It was about, this is important. And okay, fine. So I gathered a bunch of recipes, and yes, I still use recipes. So what? But yeah, I mean, I did that 100% for him, just because, okay, this matters to you. And that's enough of a reason for me to do it, just to say, I care about how you feel. And sometimes it's small things that can make other people feel seen and appreciated and cared for, validated, and loved. So it's 1:20, and so we're past our time. So I'm going to
Wait, Tashawn.
Okay.
Ellie, I think is that the correct pronunciation? You came on camera. You want to share anything, your thoughts? Unmute yourself.
No, I
Yeah,
just
there we
thought
go.
I would. I was trying to figure out how to say the chat. No, I just thought I would be a human. Normally I show up in person and I just didn't have it together earlier. So
No, thank you, thank you. We do ask everyone to turn on their cameras because we're visual. I mean, you can see someone's acknowledgement, someone's verbal, yeah, I get it, So um I'm gonna pick on Denise because I said it in the past. I'm like, men are they are visual creatures and we're here to connect. And so thank you, Calvin, for jumping in to show
yay!
yourself.
What is LA? Oh, she had something in front of her face. I was like, oh, there was like a white thing.
I think it's Linda. LA, is that Linda? She's come out to an in-person event. Maurice was on camera originally. He took himself off. But I just want to make sure we don't glance over and not give you an opportunity to chime in and share.
I was drawn to this because it's about empathy and I'm passionate on that topic. Always, I'll be working on my emotional IQ till I die. But yeah, I think it's intrinsic to like business success. I mean, like so many things now are not the old models of leadership as showing what you know and coming in. It really is being agile and being human you know, and so I think these things are like awesome. I'm so glad I showed up and got to informally meet you guys, and I'm in DC. I'm in the DC area too. I'm in Maryland. So yeah, we could plan something. I don't remember who the other person was who said they were in my area, but there's good stuff here to come and
She's
visit. I
dropped
got a
off,
spare room right now.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, good. There we go.
Just,
All right.
I'll send a message through the meetup chat, or you can reach me at my email address. So we'll definitely follow up on that. Sounds good.
Cool. And I cannot, for the life of me, cutting and pasting, which normally works. I don't know why my mouse isn't working. So I really want to save this thread, and I can't remember how. I know there's 3 dots somewhere I'm supposed to be able to click on, save it, and I cannot. And I wanted to get the songs. I want to get the fight song, the love song, the, you know, and the empathy thing. I can't even paste that thing. I'm like, Tess, so.
So we do post the recording, but what I'll do is I will post in the event comments the songs. And what did you say? What else? What was the other thing you said, Ellie?
How can I save this chat? I know there's a way where you click on, it'll save to your computer. Who knows how to do that? None of you?
Lori's our resident Zoom guru. Do you know Lori?
Lori.
If you go to the
it can only hold on. The first things first is if the administrator has it set that the chat cannot be saved, then it won't be able to be saved. So it really is based on the settings. Whose Zoom link is this?
Mine.
So Sean, it's yours. Did you set it up so the chat can be, because typically the default is that the chat cannot be copied or saved.
Okay.
Except by the administrator.
Okay.
So Deshaun, if you recorded it, she can come back and view the recording through.
I know I'm not going to listen to an hour and a half to hear. And actually, there's things people post in the chat, their songs that they didn't say. I mean, if someone's willing to paste and email me, but it's fine.
Ellie, give this a shot. Highlight some of the stuff that you want to copy, right? And right click copy and see if you can copy it and then paste it into like a Word document or something.
Oh, that's what I've been trying to do. That's why I know something's not right. I mean, normally I can. It's okay.
It just means that setting is turned off. And a lot of times people turn it off for security reasons, for privacy reasons. So, and that's the standard with Zoom, unless you physically go in and turn it on so that the chat can be saved or copied.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ellie, I'll copy the songs into the event, because I know you can't see the chat even in the recording. So I'll copy the songs into the event, as well as the empathy quizzes. And
thank you.
Was it just those 2 things you asked about?
I think those are the main things. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I want everybody to have their playlist. It might save somebody's life. Yeah, I've had some very
That's hilarious.
I've had some very interesting meetings that the listening to the music before I went in there, it's like, yeah, this totally changed what would have happened in this meeting based on me doing that first. Especially if you know the other person is upset. So you're like, all right, I can't react. I need to, not be reactive. So let me go ahead and get my feelings under control here. So yeah, I will definitely go back and post those for you guys.
This was all wonderful.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you for sharing and being a part. Yeah, emotional intelligence is there are so many things. I mean, I know it's a lot of content that I'm sharing, but it's a lot that I'm not. I mean, I'm really trying to get just the real meat, because just like you were saying, Ellie, I mean, there's so many ancillary aspects, even with, you know, the way that things are on our job, where it used to be more focused on people and now it's production and being very impersonal. Like, okay, you know, you didn't get this done, you know, sales are down this quarter, and not anything about like, okay, are you good? What's going on? You know, what can we do? Even if somebody did really well, you know, up to a point, when they're not, then it's no like, okay, how can we salvage this? It's literally like, well, you figure it out or you're gone. So it's just a different place we're in our world, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do think there's initiatives, you're right, to have it be a place where you can make mistakes and talk about the mistakes, you know, even rewarding failing, you know. So yeah, there's so much, and even things you touched on like Mars Venus. I was holding back from the chat, but I was like, yeah, I mean, it's a great book. If anyone hasn't read it, there's a reason. But like how men might think, I did this for you and I work and I bring home money. And it's like, how does, you know, all that stuff and the love languages. So I'm here for future. I'm a converted fan. I could tell by the content you were great. Now I'm like, good to meet you.
Thank you, Ellie.
And Donna too.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So I was actually going to have us pray, since we normally pray at 1, since that's our normal ending time, and people can continue to talk if they want. And so Donna, please pray for us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to Sean for the anointed delivery of your message today. Thank you for all that have shared. Thank you for all that have listened. Thank you for all that have been vulnerable in your understanding of where you are, where you would like to be, and where God is taking you. These words should travel past today onto other days and moments throughout your life. Thank you for joining us. Please be patient with yourself and others. Let God cover, favor, give you grace, help you understand the difference between sympathy and empathy so that you stay present in that all day, all throughout your time. I want to close by please continue to share your voice, because that's how we learn, heal, and grow. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for God's blessing on all of us to be here today. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Did anybody have anything else that they wanted to ask or share?
I'm gonna call on Calvin, because Calvin has showed his face, and normally he don't share his face unless he wants to share something. So Calvin, come on.
Thanks, Jenny. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you. You never say nothing, Calvin. You know this your subject, right?
Calvin, bring it. 3 to 5 sentences. Can you tell I'm a recruiter? Answer and no.
Shut up, Calvin.
Oh,
nothing.
I'm just here to listen and learn a woman's point of view, but have to understand that men don't see things like women do. We just don't. Majority of men are black and white. Okay, and we're really stubborn at reading minds of women. Say what you mean what you say. The whole flowers thing. You tell me you don't like flowers, I'm not getting them. not getting them. I'm just not. But I mean, I get the guy. I get him. I'm like, ooh, that's me. You tell me you don't like something, you ain't getting it. Okay. But personally, I just thought I didn't see that movie from beginning to end. I always come in on it, but y'all don't need to be together. That's just it. You're ignoring each other, so that you standing on the railroad tracks. Just stay there long enough, a train will be coming. But empathy, I have a lot of that. I have a lot of that, and understand it. So I'm trying not to start nothing here. I'm just trying to get a woman's point of view and go with it.
So that's why the shut up, Calvin, because you're not trying to start anything.
Yeah.
Well, Calvin,
I talk. That's how I talk to me.
Yes, we know because you say it all the time. You tell yourself to shut up. We've witnessed you talking to yourself.
See, if he had said some stuff like that earlier, I'd be responding, but we don't have time.
Well, but here's
it's good stuff. I mean, I think that's a big challenge is, again, one premise of Mars Venus is that women need to speak cross-culturally and communicate like what we want. And we women think men should know what we want. And if we have to ask for it, then it means they don't care. And they think so differently that we have to learn to do that. And it's so both sides being uncomfortable, are being uncomfortable with doing that because we don't think we should have to. And then when we get it, we're like, but we asked for it. So, and then men feeling like, a whole other elements, so I think it is learning to cross communicate. Like men don't want to apologize because, I'm feeling pain when I'm apologizing. But you know what? We women felt upset enough, maybe for hours, because you didn't show up and you didn't call to say you'd be late. So we're thinking, yeah, we need you to sit with those feelings and be uncomfortable enough that we know you felt the discomfort, but like you just are like, I said, I'm sorry, that should be enough. So it's, learning how the other side thinks and being willing to be uncomfortable, getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Maybe that's a part of.
Half the battle is.
See, I now you didn't really provoke me, but I want to say, you did, so I jumped in, but I'm putting myself back on mute so we can end at some point before midnight.
What men are, okay? You want us to be you, and we're not. See,
you want us to be you, and we're not.
No, that's not.
But let's be fair though. Let's be fair on what was said about the video, because you said you didn't like this, and then she went to how many times have I said I do like the ballet, and you won't take me to the ballet. So in fairness, yeah, I said I didn't like that, but I have told you things I do like, and because you don't like it, it's off the table. And so I think sometimes we get caught up in those instances where we are right and not really thinking about what's really the point. And so when I was saying earlier about the bottom line is that they both felt unappreciated. So regardless of why they felt unappreciated, they felt the same feeling. They both felt unappreciated. And how they feel appreciated might be different, but it doesn't negate the fact that they both felt the same feeling. They both felt not heard. They both felt unappreciated and overlooked by each other. And so we may be different in our needs, but the truth is that has nothing to do with our sex. It has everything to do with your life experience, your perspective, what you value, what you don't feel is all that important. And that's why the judging part has to be set aside, because what we see as being of value or important may not be for that other person. I had a whole thing with my aunts and my grandmother because I don't buy greeting cards. I fly thousands of miles to see them. But because I don't buy them a card, I don't really care. That's crazy to me. But they feel very strongly about that. And so I can't, tell them that's crazy. I can't tell them too bad, deal with it. That's important to them. They are, and so it's like, all right, what value is it in arguing the point of whether it makes sense and all of this stuff? If it's really about me having a good relationship, just like we talked about, last month, if it's really about the relationship and this is all I got to do is buy you a card, buy the card.
Guide yourself.
Problem solved.
Is loving them at their love language. Like that's their love language.
Yeah.
And it's often hard to adjust and understand that, but once you get it, yeah.
Well, and from the movie, one example was Jennifer Aniston's character. I mean, she went to this sports hangout, whatever his thing was for the weekend. And she's expecting, like, no, that's not what I would have picked. I didn't think it was fun having beer spilled on me or whatever she said, But I went. And so she's thinking, well, that's what you do for someone. So of course you should. And so I think, again, and I think we just aren't taught to talk these things out. I mean, the reality is, did she dislike that as much as he disliked the ballet? I mean, you could break it down and go, were there aspects she'd like, whereas he might hate the entire thing? And is there some other thing other than the ballet? Or how frequently could he die to self and come and do that, and find something positive in the ballet? Or is there another kind of, it's just being able to what are the methods of how could we solve this, type of thing. It's looking at it as kind of tools, could we compromise? Could we, what our approaches, instead of just, you didn't do what I wanted, I did what you wanted. And then it's just, so a bit of Maurice's, approach of stepping back sometimes, because by the time our feelings are involved and we're just like, you didn't care, and I'm putting the wall up and let's end the relationship because it's happened enough. Like you're saying, TS, don't let it get to that point.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is that it's not about this is something you want to do. Thanks, Lori. It's about, and that's why I brought up the thing about the cooking. Even today, I don't like cooking. But after my husband passed, I continued to do it for my children because I wanted my kids to have healthy meals. I made it about something else for them. And so in the situation with the ballet thing, it's not about you liking the ballet. It's about, it's important to me. And if I'm important to you, then you're willing to do that for me, even if it's not something you would choose to do without me.
Even if I fall asleep in there?
Yeah.
Because that told me that's probably what I'd do.
Oh no, that's going to bother her if you fall asleep. And especially if you start snoring, forget about it. You need to pretend at least be attentive. Yeah, you are going to have to, or she's going to take it as, probably.
It's better if you stay awake, but at least you tried.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, we'll give some points.
I mean, it's about the effort and showing okay, I'm doing these things because I care about our relationship. It's not about the things. It's about showing love. It's about showing care, concern, thoughtfulness, especially if there's a desire and expectation on the other end of, I want to be shown love. I want to be appreciated. I want to be respected. You know, if you're wanting these things, then it's kind of like, okay, I mean, it's not a transactional situation, but it is very much about teaching a person how you want to be treated by demonstrating the same in kind. So, okay, you want to be thought of. So, I mean, like, I think it was yeah, my dad's parents, my grandfather, no matter where he was going, he made sure that every time he came home, he had something for my grandmother. Now he probably went to do something for her, like, oh, go to grocery store and give me some neck bones, you know. So he already was doing something, but at the same time, okay, you're buying this so I can cook a meal for the family. But while he was there, he made sure to pick something up that was like, I appreciate the fact that you're making sure that we are fed every day, you know, or that you're cleaning the house, or, you know, whatever it is that he was appreciating about her. And it was just a small token of appreciation. And, you know, so, and she would, you know, give him a kiss, give him a hug as her appreciation for him thinking about her. Not complicated. Doesn't have to be a big display or, you know, overly type of a thing. If you're doing the small things, the big things like the ballet are less likely to come up, because it's just like, well, I don't really like it. I'd rather go with somebody who really wants to. They're doing all these other things that I feel secure and comfortable, that I don't need that. But it becomes more of a thing when the small things aren't happening.
I think I got to understand men though what our love language is. You know, we may not say I love you or I'm sorry. You know how we say that? As we walk by, we smack you on the butt.
And,
yeah, yeah.
And who is that for? No.
It's a man's point of view. See, you're
like on the football field.
Talking men. Oh.
Yeah, again, cross communication, I think, is a thing.
Well, the difference.
Yeah, if you want to say I'm sorry, you walk by and smack someone.
Yeah, the difference in it is the communication. Because you're doing that, but are you acknowledging? Are we clear on what the problem was, so that we don't have this miscommunication again, or we don't have this cross purposes again, or, you know, because you can be sorry about something but not have resolved it. And that's what the communication is for.
You know, and sorry, what?
I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's surprising when you encounter people that, you know, married 30, 40 years and getting divorced. And I think part of what happens is, I mean, people start changing. Often that's, I think, the woman who is going, I'm tired. I've been giving, you know, disproportionately, and now I'm just, and so again, there is a balance in, like, going, again, Mars Venus talks about, like, doing what men do. Like, when men feel like they've given too much, they pull back and they stop giving. And so we women feel like, well, I'm supposed to keep giving and I'm not saying there isn't some verbal communication that goes with it, but we keep doing, and then we keep resenting, like Jennifer Aniston, I'm going to keep doing his thing, but then it's, you know, and so, yeah, there has to be communication with it. And
I mean, personally, I wouldn't let her do it. If you know, that's kind of a normal thing at a football game with a bunch of 18, 20-year-olds and some adults. You jump and holler and you spill beer. That's not good for her. Maybe you ain't got to go to this game with me.
Well, it might have been, I didn't get the context. Was it joining his friends, his former friend? It seemed like something that was.
Yeah, it was a trip for a game. And for those who haven't seen the movie, they met at a baseball game, and that was something they had in common. And they did a lot of things that were kind of like sports and friend group related type of things. And I can see how, because she was gracious in going along with things, that he didn't realize that there was some sacrifice in it from on her part, because she didn't make a point of saying, hey, I'm doing this for you. And when that happens, sometimes it's overlooked, it's not appreciated. And she was looking for some reciprocation.
Yeah.
And she didn't feel like she was getting it. And he wasn't acknowledging her as a person, as an individual. Like, he was saying, well, I'm doing this so you don't have to work. And she's like, I want to work. So like, you're missing, what my desires are. You're missing what my wants are. You're taking care of me like a thing and not a person with feelings and my own thoughts and ideas. And that he was just doing what he thought was what he was supposed to do as a man, as a provider. And she wasn't not acknowledging that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, but I do still need you to meet me halfway on acknowledging that I'm doing what you think I should, but I'm not getting what I need.
And I think the unfortunate thing is when something like that comes out as an outburst, with Jennifer Aniston saying, do you think I wanted to be there? Da, da, da. It takes away like all the positive memory and goodwill and whatever that he experienced. So now it's like, he can start to reframe, like, that whole thing I thought was like you weren't being genuine, and you weren't, instead of her choosing to say, can we talk about the, I enjoy aspects of this and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know if you realize this is not what I would be choosing to do. Again, I haven't seen the whole movie, but assuming this is the case, blah, blah, blah. There is something in my choosing to do that because I know it brings you, and just giving that perspective, I think can open a conversation and could influence, but again, you don't want to come off like I did this for you. Right. And I did it in part so you would be doing this for me. That also takes away, like, did you do it because you genuinely wanted to make him happy? And yes, there's things you get out of it. And it's so complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, it can definitely get complicated. But I think there's ways to just simply say, well, I'm willing to go but I would also like for, like, these are things that I like, these are things you like, and I'll meet you halfway, I want to do this. And I mean, sometimes it is actual walked out compromise and not just an unspoken compromise. But okay, well, if you really want me to go, that's fine. But I want to do this. And to be fair, it shouldn't be something that they hate. But there's going to be some situations where it's like, okay, just this time, can you do this for me? Because that's what's going to be needed sometimes on the other side. There's going to be situations on the other side where it's like, I know you really don't want to do this, but I need you to be there with me. I know this is hard for you, and I'm going to need you there.
That's a great point. It is like, yeah, doesn't mean it has to be ongoing, or, I mean, could you do it once, and then it could be, is there anything else you can think of? Start thinking of activities, whatever. And instead of being like, no, because like, let me start thinking, what, there's these gardens that are amazing, and it's outdoors for you and whatever, it's come to this, let me think of something else, that could be,
yeah. And sometimes you find things that are different for both of you. Like, you know what? I don't, this is not something that I've ever done or thought of, but you like history and I like nature. So let's go and see, Mount Rushmore. It's just something that you can kind of meet in the middle on. But I mean, is it really fair to ask a person to make a sacrifice in a moment that should be theirs? Like, if it's your birthday, should you not be able to do what you really want to do on your birthday because the person that is, you know, special in your life doesn't like that thing. It's like, well, I mean, does my birthday have to be about you? Can you, you know, suck it up for this one day, you know? And you know, it goes both ways.
I love that, the birthday thing. And then does it have to just be a birthday? But yeah, I like the idea of like, this is something that really brings you joy and it's celebrating your birthday. Can I do it with you even though I really don't like it? Sure.
I mean, because there's gonna be other situations that are not happy situations where you're gonna have to, well, I shouldn't say you have to, but if you care, you're going to, you know, like, okay, I really don't like this. I mean, some people have real issues like going to the hospital, but I need you there with me. I need to go see, you know, this person, you know, my parent or sibling, whatever, my best friend, and I don't think I can go by myself. I need you there with me. Or, you know, vice versa, just different things, different moments. And that's like, you know, those moments when we do feel very single, when we don't have that person, because that's the person that we would go to and say, okay, I know this person's going to be there to hold my hand or to hold me up while I'm trying to be strong for this other person. I know that they're going to, you know, kind of have my back in those situations. And they may be uncomfortable for everyone, but having the honor of being there for someone when they need you, even if it's, you know, this is a happy moment for me and I want to share it with you. It may not be your idea of a great time, but of all the people in the world, I want to share this with you. And so it's the way of thinking about it. It's not thinking about the thing, it's thinking about the person.
1,000%.
I say something when I did the thumbs down on Calvin. That's just me. So for some people, if their love language is touch, maybe for some people that's okay to spank on the butt or a hug. The last thing you want to do, well, no, you know, if I'm mad, don't touch me at all. So that won't be effective for me. However, I was like, maybe I shouldn't do the thumbs down because he may think generally women wouldn't want that, but it depends on the person. If their love language is touch, then that may be something that would soften them, right? So it just depends on the individual. And usually we only have one person to study, one person only to study forever. So a lot of this stuff.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really one person. That's your study, right? Yeah. But I just wanted to say that because I was doing a thumbs down or whatnot. I was like, well, that might be confusing because everybody's different, you know, and how they receive things. So I'm not one.
And the context was. No, that was so thoughtful and sweet of you to clarify. And I think the context was kind of unclear. If he's like, if I want to show, you know, I don't think if someone's mad at someone, they're probably going to walk by and smack their butt.
No, that for me,
I think he was just saying a way of showing affection, but yeah, if that woman, you keep smacking the butt and she wants to hear I love you and I care about you and I think you're beautiful or whatever, something, and she goes for months or years without that, and for some women that could cause them to detach.
True, but I have to work on the other side of that as well because
the butt smacking sounds appealing to some of us too.
There's a time and place for everything.
I mean, this is a Christian single thing. We don't want to, you know, where's the line? But yeah, I want my husband to catch me in the corner when we're at a party, like, and thinks no one's looking and do whatever, and then we come out and wait. I didn't mean that fully fleshed out. I just meant like a little touch thing or something, and you know.
Ain't nothing in the Bible say no smacking on the butt.
There's not it's not like a stop sign with a butt on it, like no butt smacking allowed. It's a butt smacking zone. No.
But when I was married, she didn't care for that too much. Me smack her butt and whatnot when she's mad at me, but she couldn't catch me, so she tried. So
Oh, you are. Oh, okay. I see what you're about.
I'm the brand.
All
So
right.
you gotta
This
come
is
here.
the real situation. You got on a football shirt and you were you were trying to kind of tease her out of it
Yeah.
in the same way as that, like,
Yeah. With some
the
humor. Maybe
thing.
that was humor. Humor works sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes humor does.
For me, I can't stand arguing. And for me, there's in a situation that can come up that we can't talk about. So a lot of times it will get out of hand, but mostly I will shut down because I know it's not going to go in a good place if I retaliate. We're yelling at each other. Okay. It's not going to be in a good place. It goes to a place where it can last for weeks. I've seen it.
Oh,
Yeah. And
Yeah, there's
I'm glad
something.
that we're learning from the men, though. Sometimes I get like tired of learning about men because I feel like sometimes I'm just so over it. Like I just don't want to learn anymore about how men think. And then I come back. So I do appreciate I appreciate, the feedback from the men because I am learning more. And I was always around men growing up, tomboy and everything. And I'm just like, why wasn't I picking up on all this stuff? I guess because men weren't really
They
communicating.
weren't communicating.
Yeah, they were like keeping all the information on lockdown or something. But so I appreciate the men when they communicate and tell us what they're thinking. But then when I find out, I realize, God, why did you make us so different? Like this is hard. But I come back.
Yeah, I think it's true for anyone that there's a point, there's many years, probably well into your 20s, that you really think that everybody kind of sees things the same way. You really don't realize that everybody is so different. And then you have an experience and you're just like, that's so not what happened, or that's not at all how I felt or what I thought, or how did you get that from that? And then you start to, it's almost like a light is turned on and you're like, whoa, okay, people really do think that. And then you start to realize that, okay, because you experienced this as a kid, and because you had this relationship, and because you had this, all of these different things that color their perspective and their views and how they relate to things and how they deal with things and how they see things and how they communicate. And some of it is, the fact that we're raised differently. Men or boys and girls are raised, differently for the most part. Not always. Especially if there's a lot of girls, there's usually one of them that's kind of, treated a little bit like because you need somebody to kind of be the level-headed one, that that isn't allowed to be the princess or whatever. And it just depends. I mean, if they have uh uncles and fathers, in their life, that they can be a princess, or if they're raised by just a mom that's like, look, we got to get this done, and life is hard. So you have all of these different factors that come in, but more than God making us different is the fact that we make each other different by the way that we socialize, from childhood, the way we socialize, boys and girls, the way we allow, yes, okay for you to cry, no, it's not okay for you to cry, walk it off. You can't show affection, be very affectionate. Just extremes, but across the sexes of how could you not be different when you're taught how to express yourself, how to walk and talk and look, and all these things that are so different. I mean, you can't help but be different in so many ways, because you, from before you had any idea who you were taught to be different. Tim?
There, I couldn't figure out. I kept moving the mouse and I didn't see it. I'm trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I'm feel like that T-shirt that says "Be patient with me. I'm still in progress." and it showed a bunch of buildings and the scaffolding. I feel like that. I'm trying to understand. I've become a lot more patient. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to, be open and stuff. And my father was very old school. Like, he was a very loving, caring father, but he was just very old school, that the women can cry as much as they want. They can express themselves up, down, sideways, but we need to keep everything inside because we're strong and we're made of steel and we're masculine and we need to handle it, deal with it ourselves. And I thought, but Dad, that's not human. I mean, I'm not a robot. You're not a robot. No, but you don't cry in front of a woman. That shows weakness. And I said, but Dad, that doesn't make sense. And I was like only 13. He said, trust me, it's just the nature of it. That's how it goes. And I'm like, Dad. And then my mother said, don't argue with him because he's got his mind made up. You do your path. Let him do his path. He's on his path. Just leave him alone. I thought, okay. Huh. Geez, I've had to deal with your father. He's very closed. He won't talk about his feelings. Wow. So I've kind of tried to be the opposite. I'm saying this because I've been criticized so much for being too emotional and too sensitive. But at what point do you get too sensitive? At what point? So I know one of my pastors I'll close with this. He got up and started talking about things about relationships and stuff, and he started crying. He lost it. He said, he ended his sermons saying about love. He was about love. Talking to the men, then he talked to the women about responsibilities. But he said once, he says, weddings are incredible. I love weddings. And his wife was the pianist, by the way. And he said, I went to a wedding once. Oh boy, did I go to a wedding once. And I never got over it. And he pointed over to his wife and he made the sign of the heart. And everybody was like, oh, wow. But then I had another pastor who said, my wife and I have had a lot of arguments. We don't agree on a lot of things. We sometimes really get into it, but you know what? It's okay because we always resolve it. So I'm thinking, somebody said to me, who was really honest here? I mean, it was cute what the first pastor said. It was so sweet, but I kind of I like what the second one said because he was like, we really get into it, but it's okay because everybody does. And I love her and they'll never stop loving her. So I guess both were good, but it was like, wow. And just food for thought, but I'm still learning. I feel like I keep saying, even though I'm single now, I don't have anybody, but I keep trying I think I'm actually my own worst enemy. And I think I'm my own critic. And I think I need to love myself more, give myself a little grace because, whenever there's a failed relationship, I blame myself all the time. And it's not always my fault. It's just the way things were. And one person went this way, I went that way, but it's okay. It's equal, responsibilities on both. I can't be too hard on myself. So I just wanted to say that. Choking. Talk about getting choked up. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I have a hard time. I'm a reader at the church, and I get up and I read things, and I was so embarrassed because I cried. I didn't plan to cry. I had already practiced it. I get up there and it says, I put my hand out and I'm reading the reading. It says, all day long I stretch out my hand to a stiff-necked and gain-slaying people. Even the cattle knows his stall, but you do not know me, says the Lord. And I started crying because you could see God just reaching out like, please, listen to me. I love you. And I'm thinking about us as people, they always say the cross is vertical and horizontal. So we got our relationship with God and got a relationship with one another. And I'm thinking we need to do that to one another. Please just listen to me. I love you. Just stop and listen. So I just want to, and I already said that before, but I'm trying to be a better listener. So that's my say.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah. We don't listen enough.
No.
And it's because we want so much to be heard. But we got to take turns listening too.
We want to be right. I know a lot of people that have to be right, no matter what the cost is. I'm right, you're wrong. So I'm right. And I think, well, what a cost? At what cost are you right? It's okay. Maybe you are right, but at what cost is it really worth it to slam your fist, gavel down, and say, I'm right. You listen up, I'm right. Let's not discuss it anymore.